Lord, I rise to move Amendment 5 and speak to 28, 30, 50, 115 and 125, many of which are in my name and the Noble Lord Fox's. I'm very aware of the time and the risk of a vote being called, so I am abbreviating this on the understanding we may be able to have discussions later. I actually, in the interest of time, didn't speak in the first group, but in a way the Noble Lord Fox then spoke about, rather than this being a framework bill or a bill that's filled with Henry VIII ploughs, of providing guardrails. And many will see the amendments in this group collectively as providing a set of environmental guardrails. The Noble Lord Sandhurst said the bill needed policy direction, and that's essentially what these amendments do. And I take the point that the Noble Lord the Minister said about there's a level of detail which is not appropriate to be included in legislation rather than regulation. But I did spend this morning with the Westminster Forum talking about deposit return schemes and extended producer responsibility, where I learnt about RAM, recyclability assessment methodology, and those are certainly things that need to be down in the regulation, but they need to be the guardrails here. And I think these amendments, particularly when you look at they often will be classed as environmental amendments, but they're also amendments about things like the right to repair and amendments about tackling utterly unnecessary and deeply costly to consumers planned obsolescence. So these are also amendments that start to address the cost of living crisis, which is of so much real principles to people today. Now, I was going to go in considerable detail through these amendments, but given the time, what I'm going to do is focus particularly, I think, the arguments for right to repair and against planned obsolescence are really obvious to people. I'm going to just very briefly address the circular economy elements which run through as a line through these amendments. And it's worth saying that the Environmental Improvement Plan contains a target to reduce residual waste, excluding construction waste, to 437 kilograms per capita by 2028. But in 2022, this figure only stood at 558.8 kilograms. That was only 2.8% down on 2019. In 3 years, that was all the progress that had been made for this target of circularity, which is only 3 years away. And just looking at the Noble Lord Frost, no longer in his place, was talking about EU rules about deforestation. Well, in 2021, UK consumption was associated with 30,000 hectares of deforestation, with all of the both climate and nature impacts that we understand. And if we look at that climate aspect, treatment and disposal of waste resources is separately responsible for 5% of all of UK greenhouse gas emissions. And of course, the cost of that treatment and disposal of waste is borne very often by the public, when actually a few companies are profiting from the production of these. I will just briefly mention, because I promised to do so, the Noble Earl of Lytton was unable to be with us for this group, but did just really want to stress the importance, although construction is excluded from that waste target, the difficulties that so many problems of design and failures of design that is happening in construction. We all know about the safety impacts, but they also, again, have huge environmental impacts and indeed cost impacts that many of us know in terms of working with builders. So looking at the time and in the interests of that, I'm going to stop there and beg to move Amendment 5.